Why do people care about the difficulty in Dark Souls and Bloodborne so much? That's the question that inspired me to make this video. It stemmed from another question. Why do people care about how other people play Dark Souls, or any game for that matter? Why do I, for example, get dozens and dozens of comments from people telling me that I ruined my experience in Bloodborne by daring to summon another player? As it happens, it didn't ruin my experience, and I think I would know, considering it was my experience. But why? Why is it playing the game wrong to use a gameplay mechanic? What is the mindset behind this? So that's what this video is about, set to some footage from my favourite hard game, Ninja Gaiden II on the Xbox 360. The basic logic goes that summoning other players makes a boss easier, and fundamentally I suppose it does, but summoning is also a game mechanic. It is encouraged. This is an online game. Why do people feel the need to belittle others just because they summoned? It's not like you turned a switch that turns it to easy mode. Summoning other players isn't like flipping a switch that turns the game to easy mode, because it does give the bosses more health, and at least in the case of Dark Souls 2, gives them more poise. I'm not sure if it affects their damage or not though. But I don't have to summon to fight a boss. I choose to because I enjoy the experience of it. But then, making a boss easier? Oh no. In that case, why aren't you playing the game without ever increasing the damage of your weapons? Why are you raising your stats? Because by the same logic, that is making the game easier. And you might say, oh, that's the intended way to play the game. Well, how is summoning not an intended way to play the game, as it's an advertised feature of the game? I don't really see the difference between summoning someone and raising your character's level. They're both making the game easier, but who cares? So, again, why do people care about the difficulty in these games? Well, there's a few answers to that question that I can think of. As for why you care, I don't know, tell me why you care, if you do, and I'll tell you why I care about the difficulty. I don't think Dark Souls is a difficult game, or Demon Souls, or Bloodborne, or Dark Souls 2, but how I define difficulty in a game might differ from how you define it. To me, neither Dark Souls nor Bloodborne requires much in the way of fast reaction times or manual dexterity in order to succeed, nor does it need an excellent stratagem, a thinking mind. The skills that these games require, from my experience, are simply observation. Sure, you need to have fairly good timing if you want to land a parry, or if you want to, dodge roll everything, but that isn't required to be good at the game. While dodging to a lesser extent than parrying, but you see what I mean? You don't have to master parrying and dodging to beat the game. These games aren't easy though, but they aren't that hard either. And yet, before Dark Souls 2 came out, there were lots and lots of people worrying, people who were afraid the game would be too easy. So what? Oh, so the enemies don't one-shot you? Does that somehow make the game worse? They've made some mechanics less obtuse. So what? I'll agree that Dark Souls has an air of mystery to it which should be preserved, but having an NPC explain things to you isn't really ruining that, I feel. And Dark Souls 2 actually does a good job of that at the beginning. In Majula, if you talk to the NPCs, they tell you pretty much everything you need to know. But the difference between the game being difficult and dumbing down the game are actually two entirely different things, in my opinion. It's possible to dumb down a game that's easy. And yet, Dark Souls has this reputation as being some kind of hardcore masterpiece that only pro gamers can beat it, when that clearly isn't the case. I beat Dark Souls at level 1, I'm not a pro gamer. In my opinion, nothing good has come of this reputation, as all it promotes is elitism and the need from the developers to live up to this reputation. Do you remember how people reacted when they got the smallest hint that Bloodborne or Dark Souls 2 isn't as difficult, whether it was a mistranslation, misunderstanding, or even just an opinion from the uneducated? People go insane, as if all these games have to offer people is their difficulty. I don't play Dark Souls for the challenge. Sure, I've made challenges for myself, such as the level 1 playthrough, or a no shield run, or whatever, but that's not why I buy the game. Is that why you buy the game, for their challenge? Now there's nothing wrong with that, by any means, but if you're buying Dark Souls just because it's super hardcore, you know, maybe you should try something called Ninja Gaiden 2, or maybe you should try and, you know, appreciate the other aspects of Dark Souls if you don't. I do feel like this reputation Dark Souls has gotten attracts people to the game because they want to be hardcore. I hope that makes sense. But Ninja Gaiden 2 is an amazing action game, and unlike Dark Souls, Demon Souls and Bloodborne, it has been designed to be hard. Dark Souls punishes those who do not pay heed to their environment. That is a sort of difficulty, yeah, but the impression I get from Dark Souls is not that they sat down and went, alright lads, let's obliterate these players. The infamous director of Ninja Gaiden, whom I have the utmost respect for, I should point out, I think he's an awesome game designer, but he more or less does that, and here's a quote for him, in fact, in reference to Ninja Gaiden's difficulty, which was described by one game magazine as a design flaw. It was done intentionally, of course. The testers who tested this game went nuts. At first it was easier, but when the testers said this is too difficult, I made it even more difficult. To which the interviewer asked, "You would describe the game as badge of hardcore honor," and he replied, "Of course." That is the key difference here. Dark Souls should not, in my opinion, be a badge of hardcore honor, not to take anything away from the accomplishment people feel when they beat the game, but rather because I strongly feel that is not the philosophy behind the game. I don't think, and you know, I don't know for sure, I've not talked to the designers or anything, but I don't think that they sat around going, how can we mess with the player today? Maybe instead they go, wouldn't it be cool if we had a light source lure the player forward, and then an enemy jump out from the shadows and grab them, for a, you know, for a shock or something. But if they look carefully, they would be able to see and avoid the enemy, and get the jump on the monster from above, or from around a corner or something. This is of course, you know, my opinion. It's just the way I see it, you know? I don't play games for their challenge. Sure, I beat Ninja Gaiden 2 on Master Ninja, but I didn't buy the game because of the difficulty. I bought it because it's an amazing action game. The idea to challenge myself by trying Master Ninja came later, and well, that was a challenge. Soul level 1 in Dark Souls didn't even come close. Even if I did Dark Souls Fists Only New Game Plus 7 level 1, still doesn't come close. The Master Ninja run needed a level of planning that would take an entire video just to explain, oh, so this chest over here has health in it, you sure you want to pick that up? Because if you have full health, the health turns into money instead, and that money could be used to upgrade a weapon. You sure you want to use that save point right there to heal yourself? You might need it after the next room of enemies, so maybe it's better to backtrack and use a different save point, but not heal. The amount of planning all played into the experience, and that was fun. And yes, you do have to plan your Dark Souls level 1 run, you do have to plan your challenge runs, you have to go, what area should I go to, what bonfire should I use, if I'm not doing a bonfire run, what route should I take? And yeah, that is a challenge, but it's you know, it's something the players have come up with. If you find Dark Souls hard, I'm not saying you suck or anything, and I'm not trying to take anything away from the accomplishments you feel when you beat a boss. I mean, hell, I had that now and then. All I'm trying to say is, I don't think Dark Souls and Bloodborne should be cherished for their difficulty. I think they should be cherished for their design, and for the fact that they don't treat the player like an idiot. So what if a player uses magic, or summons? So what if they beat the game at level 300? Let people play how they want to. If it doesn't have any impact on you, what's the problem there? Do you really think it's damaging someone's experience if they summon players, or if they use cheap magic? I don't really think so. But I'm also saying, if you have a problem with me summoning, I have a problem with you having not beaten Ninja Gaiden 2 or Master Ninja, so go do that. And don't you dare skip a single test of valor.